And tonight we are taking a look at the roots of the financial crisis through the documentary film Generation Zero. Now, the film points the finger at the country's political leaders, but it also is sending a stern message to each and every American. Let's take a look.
It means if we are going to embrace the path of free enterprise that has made this country great, we're going to have to do some hard things and make some hard decisions. And we're going to have to tell some people, no, they're not going to get bailouts.
You either have the courage to make the hard decisions now, or you're forced later on to live with the hard consequences. It's part of what we call maturity, being an adult, having real judgment.
There is a lack of quality in our leadership, in every aspect, in every role, in every part of our public life. But the real crisis in leadership begins in the homes and the households of this country. Until the American people understand that they have to take responsibility for their own lives, that we can no longer depend on elites for their efforts, their energy being dedicated to our interests, we're going to continue with one of the most threatening crises in our country's history.
The problem that we face is one of national character right now. We have traditionally thought of the American way of life as one in which we enjoy a huge amount of thriving and prosperity, but furthermore, we engage in a system of free enterprise and prosperity and opportunity that we pass on to our children that means that they're going to have at least as much opportunity as we ever had. Well, what we're doing right now in response to this crisis is completely contrary to that. Our political class is telling us that what we need to do to save ourselves is to mortgage the future of our country and the future of our children. That's a change in our national character and a change in our national culture. That's a very, very extreme thing to do.
The forgotten man in the 1930s was the little guy who didn't happen to be in the program from the government, the small business who didn't happen to fall into one of the favored groups of the New Deal. The little business who's struggling and waiting for the government experiment and the recession to end. The forgotten man today is our children and grandchildren, because we're taking their money and we're leaving them with the debt.
And we continue now with Dave Bossie and Steve Bannon. I kind of like what everybody in this said here. If you go to Arthur Brooks and he goes on about free enterprise, et cetera, they're going to have to make hard decisions and tell people, no, you're not getting any more of our money. Well, pretty simple.
If you can't afford the house, don't buy it. You have to be told no at some point. If you don't have a credit rating that can buy the car, you don't buy the car. It's not nice. It's not politically correct. It doesn't feel good, but it's the right thing to do.
You know, it's funny. When I grew up, I didn't grow up. When I started my adult life, I had to drop out of college 3 times. I couldn't afford to pay for it. Right. I was doing construction, painting houses, laying tile, and doing everything I could do to get my next batch of money. I drove $200 and $300 cars. I painted my landlord's apartment. Whatever happened to that attitude? I never expected the rich to give me money. I expected to go out and earn money.
Right. That was a different time and a different era, and I think that the politicians have just promised so much to people. And I think one of the problems we have here, and what Arthur Brooks gets to, is that all the easy choices are in back of us. All the simple solutions are years and years ago, Sean. All we have in front of us today, if you play this thing out, is hard choices, but even worse, they're all going to be unpopular. And that's what I think the Tea Party's saying is they're not looking for power. They're not looking for a man on a white horse to come in.
Now, this is interesting, though, because George Bush made some tough decisions. Everybody supported him. And then over time, the demonization begins. So when it comes time to cut Medicare, when it comes time to deal with Social Security, when it comes time to deal with these budget deficits, and you're going to see some cuts, is the country going to accept that? That's it. We're at a crossroads, right?
We're at a crossroads, and I think that's what we're going to see. I think the Tea Party movement is showing you that, and I think over the next couple of years we're going to see.
Will they sustain it? I'm not talking about the Tea Party movement. Will the country sustain it?
I don't know that we're going to have a choice, though. I think people are going to have... Look, this is tough medicine. This is tough medicine we're going to have to take.
Nobody wants that.
Well, and nobody ever wants that, but that's how we got to this problem, was this irresponsible behavior by the politicians and by Wall Street.
But this is the whole point, to just sort of tie this all together, because you're dealing with a different mentality of my parents and my grandparents, which had nothing.
Well, they had the responsibility. They knew if they couldn't, they didn't earn the money, they couldn't go out and buy the car, the house.
So where do we go wrong? Where do we get to this point where, whether you can afford a house or not, the government's government's going to give you a loan.
It's narcissism. I think that's the narcissism that came up from the Cultural Revolution of the 60s. What we had is started to have this narcissistic behavior where the self became everything. And once you become so self-centered, it all becomes the me generation.
Is it? But there's a political component to this. There are people that have always wanted and have always advanced the idea of socialism in America.
Yes.
To each according to his need, if you want to use the Marx line, from each according to their ability, right?
Yes. Or worse form, even this capitalism where you keep getting bailed out. So you get a form of capitalism where the wealthy keep the upside, or the elites keep the upside, and the American taxpayer pays it. We nationalize the risk, and we privatize the profits. That's why you have such anger from the working man in this country, because it's not fair. Remember, our currency is not backed up by by gold, by silver,
by gold.
No. But it's backed up by trust. And what we're seeing now, I think for the first time in American history, is really the American people are starting to lose faith and confidence in their government.
Two things have come up recently. America's AAA bond rating, this talk is in danger. Yes. Tim Geithner actually even suggested that he'd be open to the idea that America, the dollar, will not be the world standard.
Look, that's inconceivable to me. And this is an exceptional nation. We have some problems. We have some tough medicine ahead of us, but we're going to get ahead of it. We're going to get back on track. I have great faith in this country. I have great faith in our people, in the working men and women of this country.
Coming up, America's most difficult decisions may not be behind her.
The Revolutionary War period up through creating our Constitution, the Civil War period, and the Great Depression and World War II. In those three periods of choosing, people had to decide what kind of country we were going to be, where we were going to go as a nation. I think we are entering a similar period. The choices over the next few years are among the most profound we will have seen in all of American history.